Hello everyone, this is Jasmina, and in this video I am going to talk about being in sync with a period, and the method I'm going to talk about can be applied to any period. Now, there's a very important book, Xuan Kong Da Gua, Not Exactly for Dummies by Hong Hin Chung, and it contains all the information you need to be able to see if you're in sync with any given period. Now, of course, right now we only really care about period 9 because that's the current period we're living in, and that is what you're looking at, is the current period when you're trying to see if you're in sync. Now, this book also contains some specialized setups for mountain dragons and water in combination with the house sitting and facing. These things are quite rare, and I'm going to cover that in a separate video, but you're very unlikely to have one of these things. Now, this book also contains all the information you need for understanding the 64 hexagram chart, the ring that you would stick over your house, and the out of Gua numbers. So this book is one of the most important books that you can use to understand Xuan Kong Da Gua when it's applied to both Bazi and Feng Shui. Now, each of the 64 hexagrams have an element and animal sign associated with it. And this is what allows you to create a possible pillar in your Bazi, that is, you can possibly link with one of the pillars in your Bazi. And this is how you can become in sync with the period as an individual. Now, each of the periods has certain hexagrams and certain pillars that are representative of that period, and that's how we link, is we're looking for certain hexagrams and certain pillars. There are two types. One is a mountain star group, and a mountain star is a mountain of a certain shape. And the ones you're looking for is whichever is the current period star. That determines which mountain star we look at. And then we have pure Gua groups. And these pure Gua come from the early and later heavens, Baguas. Now, the book that I keep talking about has the association between the hexagrams and the element and animal signs, but unfortunately they're only in Chinese. So I'm going to give you this once again. This is the element, which will be on the top row in your Bazi, and it's labeled usually heaven stem. And this is the earth branch, and this is an animal sign. And this is typically the second row of the Bazi. Now, each one of these animal signs has a polarity associated with it. Rat is yang, ox is yin, tiger is yang, rabbit is yin, and so forth. So oftentimes you will just hear wood rat. Well, because rat is yang, you know it must be a yang wood rat. And you will never see a yin wood rat in a chart unless there's an error. So this is pretty easy to understand. And again, you can take a screenshot because you're probably going to need this. Now, again, the way we're going to find out how or what hexagrams and what pillars we're looking at is we need to look at the connection between the early and later heavens Bagua and the location of the period star within the Lo Shu. And we've done very similar things before, these linkages between these two different charts. Now, each hexagram is made out of two trigrams. The bottom trigram is associated with the mountain star, and so that's associated with the period. And then the top one is associated with the element, the Gua element. And again, this is the pages that I just talked about, just to remind you where they're located. And this allows the linkage between a period and one's Bazi. So here's the three important charts: the early heavens Bazi, Lo Shu, and later heavens. Now, remember this uses the Xuan Kong 2-cycle 8-period calendar, so there's no period 5. Since we're in period 9, where's 9? It's located in the south, so we look at the south in the early and later heavens. So we have the Li Gua here and the Chen Gua here, and that's key. If we're talking about period 1, we'd be looking at the Kun Gua and the Kan Gua because they're in the north. Period 2, you look in the southwest on both of these, and period 3, that's the east, you look at these. It's as simple as that. Just to remind you, we're looking at the Qian Gua and the Li Gua for period 9. So this is the pure Qian group. Now you see that all of the numbers on top are 9 because they are associated with the Qian Gua or the Qian trigram. And then we have 1 through 9, omitting 5, on the bottom. Now these names of the hexagrams are useful for identifying them. It's just a little bit easier to remember, but they have no effect whatsoever in terms of being in sync. These names and the meanings of the hexagrams are only important when you're doing an I Ching reading. So you can ignore this. Don't worry if you have litigation. It's not any better than having heaven or any worse. It's the same. You're trying to link into one of these hexagrams or one of these pillars. And again, the pure element groups are on these pages. So you can find this for any period. And this is the right assistant, which is associated with star 9. This is the mountain star group for period 9. And you will notice that 9 is all the way on the bottom here. Even though the trigram is different, it is all associated with star 9 as a period number, which is the bottom number. And the mountain star groups are listed on these pages of the book that I keep talking about. And here's the pure Li group. Now remember, Li was this trigram. This is just associated with 3. And so this is it. It's pretty simple. Now each period has 22 hexagrams and pillars, the combination, that are in sync with that period. And the reason why you only have 22 is because there are 2 duplicates in that chart. Because you can have a 9-9 and a 3-9 that are duplicate in 2 different places, at least for period 9. Now, if you have one or more of these pillars in your natal or your current luck pillar, the luck pillar that we're of that period, and you'll have at least 2, you are said to be in sync with that period. And this is you as an individual. But if your house or has a facing direction, or you have a frequently used exterior door that also faces one of the hexagram directions, everyone in the house is in sync with that particular period. And again, you can use this for any period. Now, being in sync, the reason why we're worried about this is it gives you some significant advantages. It's easier to succeed in your career and in gaining wealth, and it also gives you better health and relationships. So this is akin to having one of the activated special formations in the flying stars, but this usually only works for one period. It doesn't work permanently like an activated special formation in the flying stars. Now let's say you're unlucky and you don't have either one of these. You can still tap in and be in sync with the period by, if you're worried about money, by positioning your work or study table in one of the directions here. And this, of course, is a lot easier at home, but you might be able to do it at work too. And if you are having worrying about your health, you can position your range. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to redo your kitchen. You can buy a portable stove, probably electric, that you can arrange in the right direction and use that. Now, if relationships are a problem, you can reposition your bed. And if that bed is not against a solid wall, you should put a screen behind it because that gives a sense of security. When we're looking at your batsa, we look at your natal batsa, that is those 4 columns that never change, and the 2 to 3 luck pillars that span whichever period we're talking about, and now we're talking about period 9. Now, period 9 is 27 years long, although we've already gone through over 6 of those years. So everybody has at least 2 luck pillars associated with every period, and sometimes it's 3. It depends on how your luck pillars break up. And if you don't have your current luck pillar that is in sync, maybe your next luck pillar will. And so you can prepare for that. So when we're saying in sync, and there's a link, what we're talking about is with one of these pillars that we associated with those 3 different groups, you're going to see these 2, one over the other. If, for example, you have a metal in your day but a dragon in your month, that doesn't work. It has to be one above the other in your batsa, and that applies to both your natal batsa and your luck pillar. So you have to be careful about this and not try to mix and match. It has to be one column. Now, the nice thing is you have roughly a 94% chance of having at least one of these pillars in the combination of these. Now, if you have one or more, you are said to be in sync with period 9. That's how you find it. If you don't, and there are 6% of the people who don't, you can align to one of the directions using this 64 hexagram chart. And I have a video that talks about this, how you would do this. And there you only need a compass. It's much easier than trying to do it geometrically. So here are the directions. Again, we have the pure Qian group. This is the range of angles, or directions, I should say, and aim for the center because, you know, it's a lot easier to kind of go for the center. So like here, you would say maybe 178 would be good, 177 kind of angle. And I have divided these into East and West group. So if you need to position something for yourself and you're an East group person, you can use any one of the East group directions. It's better than using a West group. If you absolutely had to, you could use a West group, but it's not as good. And if you're a West group person, just use one of the West groups. Now, remember, we have 2 more charts. So this isn't the only angles. This is for the right assistant group. And again, we have these possible angles. And again, take a screenshot because you're probably going to need it. And then this is for the pure Li group. So that is the summary of this. And so please feel free to contact me here if you have any questions or visit my ad-free website. I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you subscribe, you will be notified when I have some new videos, and I do have some that come out every month, and I will be having another video that deals with this book too. Thank you again for watching.